What's the difference between an orc and a goblin and an Uruk-hai from The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit? Let's talk about it. So the orcs or the goblins or the Uruk-hai are the primary evil villainous monster race that the good guys in Middle-earth come across during their conflicts, but is there really a difference between them? Also, yes, I'm responding to this comment like months later, but I never really thought about making this video until now. So is there a difference between them? Yes and no. What do I mean by that? Well, first of all, orcs and goblins are the exact same thing. In the books, in The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and etc., the word orc and the word goblin are used interchangeably. They are the exact same species. A race whose origins may actually be rooted in the corruption of elves by the Dark Lord Morgoth. Maybe, maybe not, but it's a theory that I like and one that I tend to subscribe to. Now, it's a commonly held misconception among a lot of people that orcs and goblins are two separate species because of how they're portrayed in the Peter Jackson movies, and I can understand that because they do seem different. The goblins of the Misty Mountain seem smaller and rattier than the other orcs that you see in The Lord of the Rings. For reference, Azog the Defiler from The Hobbit was not only called the Pale Orc and the Orc Chieftain of Moria, but he was also called the Goblin. They're the same thing. The same can be said of his son, Bolg of the North. And of course the Great Goblin of Goblin Town in the Misty Mountains, who is an orc. So now that we're past this whole orc-goblin thing, let's move on to the Uruk-hai. But really quickly, before we move on, there's also another type of goblin that's referenced twice in The Hobbit, and those are hobgoblins, who are generally believed to be a larger type of orc, but they're barely referenced, so it's sort of like the weirworms and the stone giants. But now moving on to the Uruk-hai, and by the way, Lurtz is a creation for the movies, he's not in the books. So the Uruk-hai, who are first bred in the movies by Saruman the White, are actually bred in the books by Sauron. So the term Uruk-hai literally translates to orc folk, and they are widely believed, though not confirmed, to have been created through the crossbreeding of orcs and men. Thus they are stronger, faster, they can fight for longer, and crucially, they are no longer hindered by sunlight. Members of the Uruk-hai race included Ugluk and Shagrat and Gorbag, and possibly also Gothmog, but we're not even sure if he was actually an orc or not. But there are also two other orcs/orcish races that exist that we know little to nothing about, and those are half-orcs and goblin men. But like I said, we know basically nothing about them. So yeah, that was a brief explanation on the most prolific and prevalent monster in Middle-earth.